Hello, everyone, and welcome to Shannon Q. We're 2 minutes late. It's not my fault. I didn't do it. I blame Jangles. It's entirely his fault, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry I invited him. Is really what I'm trying to say. And I am Shannon Q. For anybody who's here and doesn't understand why they're here, it's nice to meet you. If anybody's confused as to where they are right now, I'm Shannon Q. And before we get into our topic of conversation today, which is going to be kind of a continuation of what we talked about yesterday with Peter, we're going to talk about cancel culture and platforming and talking to people that you're not supposed to talk to. So I invited the person that talks to all the shitty people all the time. Because it fascinates me. So this is Jangles. Jangles, why don't you tell everybody who you are and where they can find you?
Hello, everyone. So my name is Justin. I came up with the name Django Science Lad on a whim, and now I'm stuck with it. That's just the nature of choosing your internet handles. So we're stuck with this now. So I have a YouTube channel called Jangles Science Lad, where I go over a lot of different social justice topics, and one of my favorite topics is comedy. I made a few videos on that, and I really like using academic resources, academic sources, to mask the fact that I actually don't know what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to point you towards the people who do. And that comes from so I just graduated with a master's degree in biomechanics, and in grad school you can't say that the sky is blue unless you have 19 sources to back it up. So it's kind of a holdover from that. I kind of write my video essays in a similar fashion. Um, I do a lot of debate content. So in addition to doing a few video essays, I also do a lot of debate content. I originally started my Twitter handle is named SJW Debates, which again, on a whim, 3 o'clock in the morning, after 3 or 4 of these,
You make bad life choices.
I make a lot of life choices that just end up sticking. So maybe that's like the secret reason of the question that we talked about earlier. Maybe it worked out in my favor. But I've done a lot of debates. I've done, I think, 20 something,
Yeah.
close to 30 debates on my channel at this point, ranging from fellow nobodies like me, just random Twitter users like myself, to somehow I've scored some pretty big debates. I have no idea how, but I was recently at not MythCon, but a conference hosted by the same people who put on MythCon called the Better Discourse Conference. You might remember that. So if you tuned in yesterday, I unfortunately did not get to watch that, but I'm guessing that you might have touched on Peter was going to be one of the keynote
Right.
speakers.
He was going to be there with Milo.
Keynote debaters,
Yeah.
for the last debate of the evening, which would have been between him and Milo Yiannopoulos. He ended up dropping out of that for personal reasons and got replaced with Destiny. But I actually went to that same event up in Milwaukee and also spoke on a panel, and it seems like I did get pushback, but not nearly to the same extent that Peter did. And we will discover together over the course of this conversation various reasons why that might be. I think I offered my first one. I have a silly name, and no one takes me seriously, which actually ended up working out in my favor.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that I invited you, is because you talk to people like Milo, or I feel like you talked to Sargon. Did you talk to Sargon?
Yep.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
It was a tag team, but yeah.
Right, yeah. So you talk to people that other people get massive amounts of pushback. Like, their followers literally say, I'm not going to follow you anymore if you even deign to entertain a conversation with these people. And you're just like, I'll do it. And everybody's like, right. And your followers are like, yay! So I saw that because around the same time that Peter's followers were saying, like, don't you dare talk to Milo, you were like, oh, I'll talk to Milo. And your followers were like, I can't wait to see that. And ostensibly, your followers have essentially the same sort of, ideological positions for the most part, I would think. So I think it's fascinating psychologically why people would look at you and say, yeah, that's awesome, and look at him and say, oh yeah, no way, definitely don't do that. Do you have thoughts? I have some, but I'm curious what you think.
I think it was a joke argument, but honestly, maybe the ridiculous name has something to do with it. So, like that, it never occurred to me that might have something to do with it. So Twitter handles SJW debates. I have a ridiculous name, Jangles. That honestly could have, maybe, I don't know, maybe you could have some input on that. But I think probably the biggest reason
Mm-hmm.
is that still a nobody. I've still managed to be a nobody
Mm-hmm.
in terms compared to people like Destiny, like Peter
I don't think you're a
Coffin,
nobody though.
like Vosh. Well, but in relative like comparison, especially before Milo, I had probably half the subscribers and followers I did before the Milo debate, and so that risk of platforming, that risk of I'm probably not going to bring too many people in
Mm-hmm.
from my side that could be potentially
Influence.
converted over.
Yeah.
And also, I probably don't have a very neutral audience. I probably, I have a very, I would say most of my audience, and this is an assumption I admit, are probably fairly firm on the left. They're not at risk of like falling off any day now or anything like that. And so the risk of me bringing my poultry audience over towards someone like Milo Yiannopoulos or someone like Sargon or someone like Count Dankula or something like that
Mm-hmm.
is probably not super great. So there's not as much risk as if, let's say, someone like Joe Rogan, who has a pretty broad audience of a wide range of ideologies, probably not the same risk as him bringing on a really controversial figure and then giving an interview rather than a debate. So I think those are the two important factors. Like, what kind of audience are you bringing to the table, and what kind of environments are these ideas being discussed in?
So I have a couple of thoughts on that. I think that to a certain degree that the like I said prior, the mental calculus that people do is maybe like even just looking at the size of your platform, somebody may say, okay, well, Peter's got, a couple 100,000. You have less than you deserve. You should be over 10,000. And you're a little over 5, I think, right now, the last time I checked, which, yay, that's awesome. Yay.
I'll take it.
Yeah, right. Like, it's great. I think more people should listen to you. I love your debates. But people just look at that in sheer numbers and think, okay, well, he's going to give somebody like Milo a broader audience. But when you look at it from a counter perspective, you could say, and I'm not saying this about you because I think your debates are fantastic and I love watching your debates, that the quality of the counter, like if Peter has a large platform or anybody has a large platform, it doesn't need necessarily just be about Peter. If anybody has a larger platform and has a really good quality counter arguments and is executing the debate well, would it not make more sense that you would want a larger, broader audience watching the other person get effectively countered?
Yeah, to me that makes perfect sense, and I do have to make it very, very clear. I fully embrace the label of debate bro.
You do,
Like,
unapologetically.
Unapologetically, I realize that there's a lot of risk in doing debates because there have been debates where I felt like I didn't do as well as I probably could have.
Yeah,
And that I might have actually bolstered somebody. It happens when you do enough of them. If you never encounter those, you're debating. You're not helping anybody. You're not taking enough risks in order to actually be effective. You're dunking on the lolcows, and that can be fun. It's not, but it's not really effective.
Right.
So there is definitely that risk. But I also think that broadly speaking, our ideas on the left are good enough to where they can survive even if the other team shows up. Like, I think we can win even when the other team shows up.
That's a really solid point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people think about that. Do you think that people worry more so that the execution won't be good enough or the right points won't be hit upon? Or do you think that it's just the sheer fact that that person is being, like, a bad person is being seen, looked at, heard?
I think it has more to do with an extrapolation for the extremes of what's going to happen at the end of this debate. So let's say that I'm debating a transphobe, and the debate goes really, really well for me. Well, the end goal of that is probably trans people just get to live.
Yeah.
Imagine. Maybe, and I'm, no debate I have is going to change the public consciousness yet. But in the absolute best case scenario, if everybody in the public did see this debate, trans people would just be treated a little bit better, and they would be able to live their lives with only the terrible things that everyone has to deal with, without the added pressure of transphobia on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
But the risk if I do poorly, and the transphobe comes out looking really good and making trans people look, worthy of oppression, well, then the risk is pretty enormous there. And I think that's a very valid risk to have. Like, that's a criticism that I take seriously. And like, it's not something that's, I want to approach flippantly, because on some small scale, like if one person feels a little bit better after a debate, or one person feels like terrible and like personally terrible after debate, it's something I do want to take seriously. It's never just, for what it's worth, I do think debates are largely entertainment, but that's not to say that entertainments and information and rhetoric and what influences your life, these aren't neatly separated. So you can be very, very influenced by something that you watched for pure entertainment.
Or it can lead you down a road of continuing influence if you find something like it causes you dissonance, or you have an interest in it, or you hadn't thought of it before. So yeah, like I struggle with it, and for precisely that reason, for the reason that when it's done well, when it's executed well, you have the opportunity to counter and effectively show the holes in the argument of a person who has bad ideas to their audience directly by engaging them. So the risk to me doesn't seem to be in engaging them at all. It seems to be in engaging them and doing a bad job. But you have no idea how that's going to go until it happens. So you'd have to future project to it, which isn't really reasonable or possible. So that's what I struggle with, because if everybody says these people shouldn't be engaged at all because there's a risk you could do it poorly, then nobody engages them and they're just allowed to kind of roam freely uncountered. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there is that risk of if you never engage with someone, well, they don't go away. I mean, it's just the kind of topic.
Why would they?
Exactly.
Right.
We can deplatform people, but there is that little bit of this. Like, I think it's also pretty unarguable to say that getting deplatformed is a really big boost to your career in some aspects. Like, you get to put that they're trying to silence me, and just by having that narrative surrounding you, like, everybody is trying to silence me. Like, big media, like all the people in power are trying to silence me. And, who likes the people in power? Regardless of your political spectrum, that can make your ideas seem like dangerous and like interesting. Just that veneer of, I might not have heard these ideas before. And, the people in power think they're dangerous. Well, what are they? So, yeah. And obviously, like, losing a Twitter account. In today's day and age, that's actually a pretty big hit in terms of like your ability to communicate with the public. But then again, you can just talk to somebody who does have a Twitter account and
or create socks. People create socks.
Yeah, socks. Like, you can build your
Sargon's had 70. Like,
how many people were talking about Milo over the past couple of months, despite the fact that Milo does not have a Twitter account?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the thing is that just because they don't even have their own individual, I was thinking about this yesterday, just because they lost their individual platform, that doesn't mean that they're still not. Like look at Stefan Molyneux losing his YouTube channel. I've seen him on other YouTube channels doing interviews since then. Like, so he's still available. Like, he's still, he didn't stop existing. So
yeah, and people still remember him. The second he lost his YouTube channel, his ideas didn't go away.
And it maybe entrenched some of the people, because it almost feeds the narratives that he was building, that his ideas are so dangerous that people need to try to silence him. And if there was people that might have been either on the fence or not completely, sure, but we're checking out other things, that almost solidifies it. That, his ideas are dangerous. Look, they had to silence him.
Yeah, there's a reason a lot of
he was
white
right.
supremacists. Yeah, there's a reason why white supremacist extremists really push those narratives. That the reason you haven't heard any of our ideas in real academia or real science or real quote unquote real media is because they're afraid of them. And then that person, you hear that for 2 years is kind of like I want to keep checking up on this guy. He made a few points that I think are okay, and then all of a sudden, they yeeted him. Oh man, maybe he was right. His ideas were scary. They didn't want them to propagate. They must be true because he was right about them wanting to get rid of him.
Yeah, but
I think you are about to bring up a very valid counter argument as well.
What do you think I'm gonna say? I'm curious. What do you think I'm gonna
I
say?
think you're going to say that, well, like, allowing someone to propagate without any sort of oversight, it's also resulted in a lot of huge channels and a lot of bad people having a big outreach. So
Yeah,
it's not like it's not just like letting everyone roam freely.
yeah.
It's gonna prevent extremism as well.
Right, and it's not even just that. It's Jangles. Apparently, your volume's really low.
It always is.
By
In
the way,
every single debate or every single live stream I've ever been on, my volume is always insanely low. I think it's because of like my ACDC converter, my audio box that my nice mic is in. Like it has like one click, it's like way too quiet. One click, and it'll blow your eardrums out.
well, I'm okay. I can suffer through it.
All right, is this a little bit better? Or this a little louder?
It's louder for me, so hopefully it's louder for the audience. But I was kind of gonna say that. What I was going to say is the big platforms like the Google platforms and Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Twitch, though which is getting bigger and bigger and bigger by the day. Those platforms, if you take people off those platforms, their public visibility, the chance that someone is going to stumble across them decreases dramatically
Especially in terms of like a general audience.
right, like the recruitment component of it. But on the flip side of that, they're no longer being countered in the public forum either, at least on a one-to-one level where you're going to get their audience, which is the audience you're attempting to convert. I've seen people say, and I've thought about I want your opinion on this. So I've had people say to me, and I've entertained the idea, and I'm not sure where I land on it, that you don't need to interact with them directly. You can do like a response video where you can write an article about their ideas, and that's just as good. You don't need to actually platform them and give them the opportunity to utilize rhetorical devices and sneak in their dog whistles. Why wouldn't you just do that? And to me, I think, well, if I'm just doing that, that's essentially me putting on a performance for my audience that already kind of thinks the way that I'm thinking. Their audience isn't going to gravitate towards that because they follow things that they do. They're far more likely to watch me interact with them directly than they are to watch me talk about them. And if they're watching me talk about them, they may be more likely to be in a defensive stance than if they can see me deconstruct them in real time. Because after doing a video about somebody, that gives them the opportunity to kind of deconstruct that video and figure out what rhetorical tactic they're going to use to kind of obfuscate what I'm saying or discount what I put together or make it seem as though I was misrepresenting them. But they can't do that as effectively in real time. Like it's a bit more impactful. So that's where I land on it, but I'm not sure if it's right. It's hard.
No, like what you said was perfectly fine. The people who make that argument to say that,
yeah,
excuse me, that you don't have to debate someone to engage with their ideas.
Yeah.
You can do video responses. Or you can do written responses. I think those people are 100% right. But I think that's, well, where does your personal skill set lie? I think that's the more important question. I think that's a more important avenue to look at than which one is more effective, because some people just aren't good live speakers. Some people are really, really good off the cuff, but just can't, construct something, can't write something down very well, can't read off a script very well, don't have the means, or like, what does it take to do a pretty good debate? For the most part, a halfway decent microphone that someone can understand you with. You can have a pretty shitty webcam. You don't even have to have a webcam at all to be a decent debater. Well, it helps.
It does.
Okay, yeah, an okay camera, an okay microphone, but no editing skills whatsoever is required.
Mm-hmm.
Versus someone who's doing a video essay, like if you want to stand out, you have to put a little bit of theatrics is the word I'm going to use, but all I mean is like you need to make your video entertaining to watch. Where someone who's showing up for a debate is showing up for a sports match, and they like, it's not the presentation, so as long as it's listenable, it's the battle of ideas, and that's what counts the most. I think, what are you skilled at? If you want to get involved in this sphere of like helping further ideas that you find important, further causes you find important, and push back against ideas that you find abhorrent, just what are you best at? Are you a good live speaker? Can you handle the bants and back and forth and insults and the spiciness of a debate? If so, maybe that's something that you want to pursue. If you can't, that's perfectly fine. you can still do really, really good work writing things down. Like there are a lot of video essayists out there who I've heard try to engage in debates and were pretty bad at it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fine. It has nothing to do with intelligence and everything to do with skill set.
Yeah, it's how you construct ideas and communicate them the most effectively. So
Some of the worst public speakers out there are the ones who are doing like the most brilliant academic research.
for sure, yes,
Yeah.
yes. But you and I both went through. Well, you just finished university, and I'll tell you, some professors I've worked with could barely string a sentence together.
Yeah, one of my teachers, brilliant academic, incredible work in like prosthetics and robotics and all that fun stuff, could not communicate ideas worth anything.
Yeah,
So-
they're very different skill sets, that's for sure. So, but when it comes to debating, and I'm going to get into your mindset, I think maybe a little bit more here. What made you determine, like keeping in mind that, you know, if you failed, there's consequences. And I think that that's what stops a lot of people from doing it. That and the social pressure of being told you can't engage with these people, like don't platform these people, don't give them the opportunity to own you or whatever. What made you decide this was a thing that was a good idea for you? And what do you think would make it a good idea for other people?
Well, first answer is the most honest one. I saw Destiny do it, and I thought he was doing a good job, and I'd never seen it before. All of like the big strong boys, BOIS TM that I saw online,
Yeah.
and that's a gender neutral term, big strong boys, who are doing like the laughing at. I actually just watched ContraPoints' cringe video, who are like dunking on like feminists and dunking on all these people, and they're afraid to talk to us and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I wanted to push back against that, and I saw Destiny do it, and I saw him do a really good job at it. Especially back in the before this latest arc that we won't talk
Yeah, we don't need to go there.
we don't need to go there. But the second part of that, and I have to be honest, is ego.
Like, I think I'm
I have to
amazing.
be honest. No, it's like I think it was like I think all these people who are say the left are afraid to debate, they can't touch our ideas. My first thought was, yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I think one of the strongest things that you've said thus far is that, our ideas would beat them. Like, when you go head to head and you put the ideas, like you really honestly present the ideas head to head, that if we truly believe them, it should be because our ideas can beat them. And so we shouldn't be afraid of engaging in the public forum as a result of that.
Some of that has been poisoned by the marketplace of ideas rhetoric coming from Dave Rubin.
Fucking Dave Rubin.
Yeah, but here's the thing: he poisoned the idea, but he also did not present a marketplace of ideas. He didn't present a range of opinions. He brought you a monopoly of opinions in various flavors. He brought you one brand with like the diet caffeine and like code red flavors of this one brand. Yeah. And that's it. That's all you got exposed to. So there was no marketplace of ideas. There was nothing really to compare it to except each other. Yeah. And so when your point of comparison is like a crappy right-wing idea, this is a marketing thing. Like if you compare like a crappy right-wing idea to a good right-wing idea and then a good right-wing idea but just said a little bit differently, those two good right-wing ideas are going to look a lot better. And I say good in a very relative term. So sometimes, like it can actually make the ideas look stronger if you present a weak version of the same idea in juxtaposition to it. Now, it's a really good way to get the illusion that you're giving a broad range of ideas, but also like it can make that one, the idea that is tenuous at best, look stronger in comparison.
Yeah, that makes some sense. One of the things I like to do when I'm talking to people is just to fully force them to steelman their own position in very clear, succinct terms so that everybody can be certain exactly what it is that's being presented. Because a lot of people in dialectic strategy is one of my favorite things. So I might geek out for a second. A lot of people in these types of conversations, one of the things that frustrates me, in fact, is people do a very artful job of talking around the points and allowing an audience to infer what their position is without explicitly stating it, and then defending the position they know that they just elicited that inference about. I prefer to get people to illicitly state it. So say, okay, what I heard you say is, so that it's easier to counter. And I find that super, super effective. But I'll only enter into those conversations if I know that I'm fully equipped. Like there's certain conversations that I won't wade into. Like, for example, here's an example. Here's a very clear-cut example. I am not an evolutionary biologist. Somebody challenges me to a debate on evolution every day because I'm an atheist. And of course, all of us know how to debate evolution, right? So I say no to every single one of them. I'm like, one, I don't debate. And two, I'm not an evolutionary biologist. You're going to spew out some shit that like doesn't, that I can't effectively counter in real time because I'm not armed with all of the information that I would need to counter it. So it makes me nervous. By the same token, like that's less extreme when it comes to, you know, affecting people. When you're talking about trans rights, human rights, women's rights, when you're talking about, you know, gay rights, I need to, like, I would not enter into a conversation unless I was certain that I knew how to deal with my interlocutor. Like I knew them and I knew their strategies and that I was well equipped for the topic of conversation, because if I do fail, holy shit, I could be doing some damage because I'm essentially giving the other team points. Like, doesn't that ever, like you said it earlier, but like, doesn't that scare you though? Because you debate.
Yeah. I have been puking nervous before for my debates.
Right.
Like absolutely. Like, I'm nervous before all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was more nervous going into like 3 previous debates than I was going into my like thesis defense.
Oh wow, because you knew that it had cultural implications that would real life like implications for people.
Yeah, I had an audience of 3 for my thesis defense. That's it. I had an audience of over 1,000 for the Milo debate. So 1,000 people were going to watch me, and I'd say out of those 1,500 of them were guaranteed to hate me. And I think I brought a new couple more hundred that hate me now too. Not trying to brag.
They're the best. That's how I decide my Twitter handles. Whoever has the best hate comment, you win. New Twitter handle.
I want them to be just more creative. Like I've been called soy boy so many times. It went from like not bothering me to really bothering me now. It like really bothers me now. It's like I am not even worth the slightest effort to come up with a new word. You're not gonna put.
You don't even think
it bothers me again.
Just because you're so completely uncreative, I'm pissed off. God damn it.
Yes. Like I deserve like targeted insult at least. I don't even drink soy. It's my alcoholism that like decreases my T levels. At least hit that.
Oh my god. So, do you think that there's any justified, like, so when somebody has gotten pushback, and we're going back to the mental calculus again, do you think that there's any justified reason that somebody has been told, hey, like, fuck off, don't talk to them, like, don't go there, like, don't platform them, don't be on a platform with them, don't engage with them, don't counter them, don't give them the attention, even assuming really honorable motive? Do you think that there's any situation where that's A, an effective strategy, and B, you know, justified?
No, of course. Like, from
yeah,
an abstract sense, like, yeah, like all of these things can be justified at some points.
What do you think goes into it though? Like, what do you? That's the formula is what gets me. That's where my head spins around in circles. Like, somebody tells somebody, like, I've been told definitely don't talk to people, and have been even about subjects that weren't controversial, just because of who they were. You know, don't expose people to them, and I can't figure out the mental math of, you know, well, why can't I?
I think the biggest one is there 0% that this person is going to engage in any sort of good faith? And when I say good faith, I mean, are they at any points, are facts important to this person or this audience? Because you can't assume that. I know it's a big meme. Facts don't care about your feelings, like against the left, but like no, entire subsections of like the right, especially the extreme right, don't care about facts. Like they invent new forms of.
So you wouldn't talk to somebody if you feel like them or their audience don't care about facts?
Right.
But you talk to Milo. You think Milo gives a fuck about facts?
That well,
dude,
that's the
bruh.
weird part, right? That's fair.
That has to be fair. That man lies. Just like he wakes up in the morning and lies to himself in the mirror. There's not a chance he gives a fuck about facts.
But he still gives the appearance of caring about facts. That's actually it seems like a minor distinction.
Okay.
But it's still important. Like some of the research.
So his audience believes that he cares about truth.
Right. He gives the appearance of caring about truth, and his audience, like one of the reasons that he loves, like when you machine guns people with facts.
Yeah.
Which is one of his like big things when he was a big.
When people give a fuck
gives the
about
appearance. Yeah, exactly. It gives him the appearance that he knows what he's talking about.
But
so,
how do you come to that determination?
I think if they're using statistics that are real, and this is an important thing, you can.
Oh, that's a valid point. Okay.
If you're using numbers and things that are real, like they exist somewhere outside of of just this person making it up, they can still lie about them. Like you can take statistics
or misrepresent them
misrepresent them all. But the fact that you have that little anchor means that you care about presenting some sort of legitimacy to your arguments beyond,
That's what really good liars do. They'll put in that they will build a lie around a truth so that when people analyze it, it's the truth that they see and they don't understand how it's being couched in the narrative that they built around it of how to perceive that factoid.
Oh yeah, and I think I need to go back and clarify something I said. Like,
yeah.
When I say that you shouldn't talk to somebody, I'm not saying that it's going to be. When I said that, it's because there's nothing to be gained from it, not necessarily that it's too dangerous to talk to them.
So, do you think that there's anybody that just shouldn't be like, if Richard Spencer fell from the sky and was like, I want to talk to Justin, would you be like, fuck yeah, let's do it?
I'd be like, fuck yeah, let's do it.
Oh wow.
You know what? Well. I'm emboldened a little bit based on his most recent debate.
I haven't seen his most recent debate because I don't watch his shit because he pisses me off.
Jesse Lee Peterson.
He debated. Stop it.
I don't know.
Oh if they my god.
Well, I don't know if they debated, but there was a clip that came out from that where Jesse Lee Peterson made him look bad.
I don't even know how to process that information.
I didn't either.
Somebody asked me to talk to Jesse Lee Peterson once, and I was like, I don't think I can. Why would I? Like, I don't know. He's one of those people that I feel like people watch him talk just for the amusement of his meme-worthy beta.
I actually, unironically, love listening to him. Really? He's one of those like weird people that like I don't know. He says horrible shit.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, so this has bothered me to no end, but I cannot ignore it anymore. Like facts are a really small part of rhetoric. Like like actual like material reality is a pretty small fraction of like what makes effective rhetoric.
Yeah.
So facts is just part of logic. You can have logic completely devoid of facts. I know that sounds a little bit weird. If you're,
I'm like mulling that over. Like I'm not sure if I'd agree.
Like basically like all men are mortal. Socrates is a man. Socrates is mortal.
Yeah.
That's
a sound valid syllogism though. So that.
All right. I feel angry, and therefore it is logical for me to act out in anger or something like that. I don't know. It's possible. I promise.
There's a base fact there. Feeling the anger is a base fact.
Yeah, but it's hard. Yeah. That's a whole thing.
Okay, we'll go past it. It's not the important point. Yeah.
All right, but then there's two other things. There's the character of the person that that is presenting the argument. And when I say argument, I'm saying like any really broad sense. Like every video essay is an argument, even if it's just about how awesome Disney's Aladdin is or something like that. It's all an argument, like unironically. So it's
a bad argument.
Like how much you trust this other person. Yeah. So some people really will if they have like, for example, if someone I viscerally hate was presenting like the same exact points as like H Bomber Guy or Philosophy Tube or ContraPoints or like any like YouTubers that I really love, I would probably hate the video because I'm not immune from this like bias. Like I have to trust and to a certain extent like the person who's presenting the arguments.
Yep.
In order to find it convincing, and also there's the emotion it invokes. So facts are just numbers. They don't mean anything to us by just existing. Like numbers have to mean something to us.
Yeah.
Like you're probably way more emotionally invested if like someone close to you passes away. Like one person close to you passes away is going to be way more emotionally devastating to you than if you hear that 1,000 people just died that you didn't know. Like because that's just a number to you, but the person, that was a person to you. So there has to be some sort of emotional connection to these numbers, and you can get too like I've been guilty of this in the past where I just write a lot of like studies and statistics and things like that, and that's cool and all.
You'll
But
lose
who
everyone
cares?
though. Yeah.
But who cares is not just a rhetorical question. It's like, no, who cares about these facts? You need to make them care.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited to hear you say that because I don't think a lot of people take that into account. That when somebody is listening to an argument, they're not just listening. And I think people make this mistake all the time and think that listeners and perceivers in general are just, you know, tabula rasa waiting to receive accurate information, and if you present them with a counter that is accurate, they'll just be like, oh, okay, well, I should probably change my mind. That is not the way the humans work, the fuck at all. Like not even almost the way that humans work. If you have a series of biases for confirmation, and you also have in-group bias, and those are two really 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 strong biases that we have. So if you see somebody that you at least have a parasocial feeling thinks like you already, and you have this perception that their arguments are based on facts, and you've built a trust relationship with that person, you're less likely to go examine what they're saying, and you're less likely to go examine what somebody who is countering them saying, unless and until you find the person who is countering that information equally as endearing on a personal level. If you find them endearing on a personal level, and you find a way that you can maybe relate to them and not see them as an opponent, and see the humanity in them, you open up an opportunity to actually have the person be like, oh, okay, well, this argument might be worth, maybe there isn't everything about what this person says that is absolutely accurate. And people don't think about the psychology of communication. They just think about what you're communicating, like the material facts that you're disseminating to people, not how you're delivering that information.
That points to something that I don't hear discussed enough in debates.
Yeah.
Like, so if you're talking to the other side, there does it can be done, but just providing facts that say that their narrative is wrong is almost ineffective. It's almost not worth doing in and of itself by itself. You can't just say like, oh, well, they believe that this thing is true. Well, actually, here's information to say it isn't. That's not enough. Like that by itself almost definitely isn't going to work. You have to kind of like appeal to them and make it seem like it's something that they wanted to believe anyway.
Yes.
Like the truth is, it still aligns with their core principles that they believe the mistaken information in the first place. So they'd want to believe this information anyway.
And if more people had conversations like this, we wouldn't even have to have conversations about whether or not we should have conversations. That's something that's frustrating, right? Is the constant conversations about whether or not we can or cannot have conversations, who we can or cannot have them with, and in what circumstances they are or are not okay. That's frustrating. If we had more dialogue and encouragement about how to converse better, how to do a better job of it, how to do better source methodology, how to advocate for your own understanding, how to, be an effective communicator. If more of us were advocating for that and less of us were advocating for, okay, well, don't even engage with this idea, we'd be on better footing, I fucking think, man.
There's so many like memes and baggage to like the marketplace of ideas concepts.
Yeah.
But like it's something very, very real, and like, and I am not a psychologist, so take this with a massive grain of salt. All right. But if you have an ingrained belief, not even an ingrained belief, if you just have like this social thing that you're expected to believe and it's never challenged whatsoever, you don't have good arguments to support it. So the very first time someone presents an argument against like this thing that you just kind of loosely held on to, you might drop it in a heartbeat because you haven't had the practice of arguing against it. I think this is actually a real thing. Like when we for the longest time, like I thought racism was bad, Couldn't tell you why. And I'm talking when I was in my teenage years and like very early 20s and things like that. I
Like
thought
you
racism
felt like
was,
you knew it innately, but you couldn't
like I said, like,
you couldn't
like racism was
articulate
just
it.
bad. I couldn't articulate it. And so if someone were to tell me, well, we're all just a bunch of gray people, and if we enact a policy that hurts 20 gray people but helps 80, like they could make arguments, even if they were terrible. They were still arguments I hadn't heard before, and they could still make logical sense to me. It's something that I generally thought for a hot minute, but no. And then I had to hear those arguments, and then more importantly, I had to hear counter arguments to those arguments, and be presented with a lot of the logical and scientific data and the even the theoretical frameworks to put them in order to develop a more thorough understanding of why racism is bad, even though it seems so obvious. So whatever idea you have, if you don't have practice defending that idea, it's going to wither away.
And also, if you don't have practice defending the idea, and I don't even necessarily think it needs to be presented as defending the idea. If you're not able to even articulate to yourself why you hold the idea, that's troubling, right?
Yeah.
We should know why we hold ideas. So many of us take those types of things for granted, and to a certain degree we have to, just to operate just on a day-to-day basis. But the big ones that have societal impact and affect our day-to-day lives and our interactions with people and our happiness and how we raise our children, all of those things, anything that has that type of impact, you should take the time to do some introspective work and figure out what really is propping up the beliefs that you have, even if you're not going to engage in argumentation. I think that that's just something more people should do in the world. I think
being able to examine a lot of your core beliefs, just going a couple levels deeper, is going to help you actually empathize with people who don't share those beliefs, and that's important.
Yeah.
I think it's really poisonous for an atheist not to have any idea why an idiot would believe in God or something like that. I think that's really, really poisonous.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
You should understand. Well, yeah. What are some why don't you believe in God? And maybe you can go a couple steps deeper until you can find something that you and a believer have in common. And so you don't have to meet in the middle on this, but you can meet on enough issues to where you can exist in society together and not hate each other, which I think is a good thing to do.
Yeah, it's a solid point, because one of the reasons I think that people are so opposed to entertaining dialogues like this is because there's so many tribalistic boundaries drawn, and you risk drawing somebody into one of those, bad tribes, one of those damaging tribes. And if you create less tribalistic boundaries, if you're more willing to attempt to, position takes, to walk into somebody else's mindset so that you can understand how they got there, you have a better chance of deconstructing it in a public forum, especially for other people who are thinking like them for the same reasons that they're thinking those things. I honestly and truly don't think that anybody wakes up in the morning thinking, I'm going to be an asshole for no reason whatsoever, and I'm going to take the most poisonous position I can think of just because fuck the world. Very few people think that. Most people think that they're good people and want to be good people, but find a series of justifications to believe bad and dangerous things, and then are labeled bad and dangerous people, even though they don't think that of themselves, and that causes the dissonance that pushes them into a polarized group that will accept and foster their shitty ideologies. But if you attempt to understand them, you can maybe, change that to a certain degree, but you never will otherwise. I can't think of another way.
Well, no, because you're 100% right. I did a lot of research, hours, probably about 20 or 30 hours of research. I had about I think 30 something studies, all to come to the conclusion. Okay, are you ready for this? It's really complicated. You might want to take notes. I'm serious. This is big brain stuff. Okay, that if you're nice to someone, they'll listen to you.
What? One sec. I have a pen.
Write that down. Okay?
Let me write this down.
Gotta make the equation nice equal plus minus.
That's never fucking dawned on me. I don't have that. Bow. How many studies?
Well, but
It
here's
only
the thing,
took
like,
30? That's impressive.
it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like that seems obvious, but if you never question it, like if someone did come up and say that, hey, being a complete and total asshole is actually how you show strength and make people want to defer to you because now you're the authority. You can make an argument. Like, if someone has never examined why they think being nice to someone is better, there are like arguments that you could make. They might not be good, but they're different. They're more thought out. It's like if someone has never thought about why the earth is round, a flat earther can crush them in a debate because they have thought about why it might not be. So it has nothing to do with who is correct. It has to do with who can think a step deeper. And so it might be easy. Like when you see, like I know that there's this really, really, really poisonous discourse a few years ago, right about as I was like getting interested in like the internet debates, the blood sports. Did you ever follow that at all?
No. I think you and I maybe came in right around the same time. I was just saying yesterday that when people talk about Gamergate, I'm like, what's that? Like, yeah. I legit have no idea.
I watched it from the sidelines. Like I was actually kept up with it, but I wasn't posting on any social media. I wasn't doing anything like that. So I was around.
Same with Bloodsports. Bloodsports, I think I was around maybe was that after Game? I don't know. I don't know what the time.
It was a little after Gamergate when like there's more discourse, and the internet wasn't just. It was moving away from just atheist, and theist discourse, to more towards dunking on feminists, and then more towards wanting to like dunk on like actually like real life dunk on feminists, and then eventually there was this like kind of still around, but it definitely set a mood and definitely a reputation for internet debates where like the meaner, louder, more alpha dude was going to be the winner. Because that's how you win debates. You got to be an alpha.
That is literally around the time that I came in because I was like, I can't stand this.
Yeah, that's
why I made this whole goddamn channel because I couldn't watch a conversation and get to what the point of the conversation was because everybody was too busy dunking on each other with talking points and high-fiving each other, and I wasn't learning anything about the topics I found interesting. So I was like, well, I'll just talk to people myself.
Debates are pretty bad. Actually, hold on. Debates are pretty bad at. I'm gonna write that down. I don't want to forget about the point I was actually trying to make.
Okay.
Shit, I've lost it. Look, what was I saying? So that was a very real, it might not have been super widespread, but there was a significant portion amount of people that believed that if you were louder and meaner and tougher, you were going to win debates independent of your facts. In fact,
that's true though.
Yeah, I was like, if you're tougher, that must mean that you know more than they do.
That's what it seems like to the people that are watching though. Like that's social.
If you have no idea, whoever's like more confident and like ridiculing the other person more. If you have no idea what these numbers mean, you have no means of checking, and you kind of don't during a debate, right? Like very few people are going to be like, now this person just brought up 4 meta-analyses. Well, let me look those up while he's talking real quick. As I, a 19-year-old, who's never read a scientific study and want to do. By the way, I'm not saying if you don't read scientific studies, you're not dumb. Okay, it's
It's just not something people do in their spare time generally. I do, but I'm a loser.
Like they are dry, they are boring, they are poorly written, and like I said earlier, a lot of brilliant academics are terrible public speakers and terrible communicators. And so they can't, it doesn't matter how much they know if they're not conveying those ideas effectively. Well, no one else is ever going to know them either. Anyway, excuse me.
You're good.
Again, I forgot where else I was going with that.
Well,
you told me earlier to make clear and concise points.
And you told me you were going to show up drunk and break my lamp, and neither of those things have happened. You can't even keep promises.
We're not all the way done. We're not all the way done.
We're not done yet. We're not finished yet. That's a solid point, though, that I think more people need to think about, is because winning a debate doesn't mean that you presented the most accurate argument in almost every instance. It's if you have all of the clips, like if somebody can take out a 2.5 hour debate and make a 5-minute so-and-so in beast mode clip, that'll get more views. and people will have the perception that you won the debate because they see you like doing these like rhetorical tricks that dunk on somebody in real time. That doesn't mean that you won. It doesn't mean you're smarter. It doesn't mean you were right, and it doesn't mean that you were better. Well, it does mean that you're better. It means that you were better at debating, not that you had the right position.
Right. And I feel like when people say that, that's a very, very valid point, but also like, that doesn't mean that having facts isn't going to help you. That doesn't mean that you can't be right and also really good at communicating and also really
for sure
good at rhetoric. Like, so you can be incredibly correct. The hard part is like a lot of people are like, to a certain extent, like talent does come into play here. Like some people are just really good, great speakers. Like I am not a great. I have situations where I'm a good conversationalist, and then there's other situations where I can't do anything. I know like 4 things. We're talking about one of them. If we're not talking about any of those 4 things, I'm sitting quietly.
So I picked a good topic then.
You picked a good topic.
Otherwise, I'd just be talking at you. Okay, well, that's good. Good to know.
It'd be bad. But rhetoric is something that you can work at and get better at.
Mm-hmm.
And just like you can study to learn the facts of a debate, you can study ways to frame and write those facts in a way that's going to appeal to the audience. And something that I don't hear talked about enough, and I think this is where I was going a while back ago,
what you were
is that a good benefit of a debate that I don't hear talked about enough is, what if you endear yourself to that audience? Now, I think it's not talked about enough because it sounds gross. Like, okay, here's a big audience.
Why would you want racists to like you, like Justin?
Exactly. No, exactly.
You want Nazis to like you?
Yeah, and that's been poisoned because some people in the past who have said that, like, I don't know, Sargon, if I can get racists to like me and support my positions, then I've already won. That's bad. But we've kind of already discussed, like, if someone doesn't like you, they're not going to listen to you. And so if you want racists to stop being racists, eventually they're going to have to meet someone that they do like that's going to convince them, well, actually, you know, being racist is bad, and here are a bunch of the reasons why. So eventually they will have to meet that person that they do like.
Yeah.
A good benefit from the debate, they might not come over to your side, but they might say, well, and this also is a really gross one, well, I guess all leftists aren't gross. I guess all gay people aren't these weird degenerates. I guess all SJWs aren't super unreasonable. That's gross to think about, because we can also think of a lot of instances of that, like of certain grifters making that their entire career, right? So, but
I can't think of any. That's weird. What? Weird.
You can't think of any.
And I can't think of a single one.
Not a single one.
None come to mind.
To mind. But it is important, like, so I made it it also, we're really concerned with like authenticity and things like that, but I'm of the firm belief that you're never who you're not, which sounds weird. Like, you are never, like, whatever you're doing when you're communicating to someone, whatever's most important to you is what you're doing. Like, if it's more important to you to like seem a certain way to this specific group of people, that reflects something that is like deep within you. Like, okay, you're not, does that make sense at all?
Yeah, if you're controlling your persona to be perceived a certain way, it's important to you, even if you can't enact it fully in your day-to-day life, that, you know, that's something that you would either aspire to, maybe, or, but see, I don't know if I can fully get there, because there are people who fully control their personas because they know that it's an effective way to garner an audience.
Yeah, and you know what? That's an important part of public speaking.
That's important to them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that implies something important to you. Like, if what you want most is to communicate these ideas effectively, and that's what you mostly care about, well, you're going to be a very different person depending on which audience you're talking to. And that doesn't mean that you're being disingenuous with those audiences, because it's reflecting like this deeper part of you that cares about doing an effective job. So yeah. I think that's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
Like, unless you are directly like lying about facts, I think tailoring, like, we all do it occasionally. Like, we talked to our grandmother much differently than we talked to our friend at the bar. That doesn't mean that we're being fake with either of them. It just means that we're empathizing with this other person, and it's actually good that we take their like needs and concerns.
It's entirely normal to adjust your social interactions based on context.
Yeah. So, for example, like, so I went to a Better Discourse conference, very right-wing event. Very right wing.
That must have been intense.
It was. I have so many stories about it. Lot of stories, lot of big names who I got to talk to, and that was pretty cool, and also horrible. I got to get drunk and ask Milo Yiannopoulos a question and make him mad again. Made him mad one last time. But, I made a very different switch when I was at that event because it's in person. And so, video chat is better. Like this right here, it would be better than if we were just doing voice chat, which would be even better than if we were just writing back and forth to each other, which would be even better than if we were just tweeting at each other, right? Yeah. So they're like tiers of communication, but an in-person event, I do see the value, maybe not during COVID. So if there's one criticism I'll accept, it was that like I went to this event with a lot of people who thought masks were a government tool to suppress you. That's a criticism that I think is completely valid.
Wow.
But in general, in-person events are really, really good because it's a lot harder to hate someone who's right there. Like physically, they're right there. Like you are you don't have
the disassociation that allows you to justify treating somebody. Like when you're face to face with them, you feel that emotion more viscerally, and it affects how you act.
Yeah, and we can make use of that. Like people who say us that we shouldn't go there, I understand why. Like the people who run that account are pretty awful. They're pretty right wing. They platform a lot of pretty terrible people. But man, that's an opportunity for you to talk to people who really need to hear it. That's an opportunity for you to make a very concentrated, targeted attempt at rhetoric at someone who previously may not have been receptive to your ideas. So me and my friend from Texas, who his name is Michael Gonzalez, he runs the channel Liberal Sanity Project, really, really smart dude, is a little bit canceled. It's based on some things, but in general, I like him.
A little bit canceled.
A little bit canceled based on some iffy things because he's kind of an asshole. But genuinely like sweet dude. Otherwise, really, really, really smart. Well, he drove up from Texas to Kentucky. Mm-hmm. Yes, drove. And then we drove from Kentucky to Milwaukee, and he crushed his panel. And part of the things that we both did, we wanted to appeal to the audience just a little bit. So Michael intentionally wore, so they gave us masks. They did give us masks. And this is what the mask looked like.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Big old American flag mask. And something that really stuck out to me that made me want to consider something the host of the event said, okay, you two lefties, I know y'all not going to like it, but here's your mask.
Oh, you're not going to like it because you hate America. Because you hate America.
So you know what Michael did? He intentionally put away the mask that he did have and wore this one, even though it's a really bad mask. It's actually a bad mask.
Just to prove they're wrong. But yeah.
Just to show that here was this person with the last name Gonzalez, who is advocating for essentially open borders, who loves America. And he presented himself really good. He got the audience to participate in things. He asked them questions that he knew that they would agree with to get them to empathize with him a little bit more. Mm-hmm. He was really, really good at what he did. And something I did, I made this intentionally did this was I made the audience laugh a few times, told a few jokes.
Oh, are you funny? I think I'm funny. Sorry, go ahead. You can go now. I feel better about myself, but you can go ahead.
That's fair. Okay. But I made the audience laugh. I got 2 or 3 decent laughs, which is really, really important for communication, by the way. Humor is an enormously effective tool that you can use. And you can learn to be funny, at least funnier. And also, also very intentionally, found something that we would both hate. Or at least perceive to not like as a group. So, the topic of the debate with Milo was about this book, White Fragility. I don't hate it as much as I say I do, but I do think it's really ineffective at what it sets out to do. So I made it a point, during this discussion, when it was appropriate to come up, say, hey, where are my fans of White Fragility at? No one raises their hands, except Michael in the back, and he did it as a joke. Yeah, I know. Garbage book. This is why it's bad. But here's what we can do instead of that. So it's it's important when you're communicating with these audiences, like to build that empathy. When you are in a right wing event or a hostile crowd, to like say, hey, we have this in common, right here. Like this thing that you really believe, I also really believe it. Now that I've like established that we're not completely diametrically opposed on everything, maybe like, hey, if I also think this, maybe there's some other things we have in common. Maybe we have similar goals in mind. So yeah, I think that's something about debate that we don't hear enough, because it humanizes this side that we want to demonize. I do think that's something that we need to do better. I certainly need to do better. If you go through my Twitter feed, I'm terrible about this. Well, I'm not the worst person, but I could definitely be better about this specific thing. We should not dehumanize the people who disagree with us, because like something that is really important to me, and like something I think should be a common like unifying factor of all leftists, is that we think people are basically good, that people can basically decide what's best for themselves. And you can't say that and also say, well, actually, people can't decide what's best for themselves, because if they hear certain ideas, they'll become terrible people. Like, and no matter what, like if people hear that racism is okay, actually, doesn't matter what we say, they'll just become racist. That's fundamentally at odds with that. And I think that's what really bothers me about people who are just who want to prune every single terrible idea off the face of the earth, because to me that signals that you're not confident in our ideas. It signals to me that you're not confident in the people that we're trying to help to decide what's best for themselves. Like those two things, I think, are at the core of some people's like vehement, passionate advocacy for complete and total deplatforming of all ideas deemed remotely not correct. And I think that's, to go back to what we were saying at the beginning, I think that our ideas are good enough to win even when the other side shows up.
Oh, I love that. It shows that you're not confident in our ideas. I really do. I love it because that's, I think, the way that I feel, but I'd never thought about articulating it like that. Because I've always been so focused on concern about harm, I think, that, am I propagating a bad idea by engaging in it? Am I hurting people I care about who trust me if I do engage in it? Like, what if I do a bad job? What if I give this more exposure as a result? But all of those concerns should be able to be quelled if I'm confident that my ideas are better and I can present them effectively. Yeah. That would benefit the people that are at the highest potential of harm, because I'm countering the ideas publicly and effectively that are being utilized to harm them, rather than avoiding them, which does nothing to make them stop.
Right. Something that is a little bit deep within that, and I know we're about to do Q&A, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we've been talking for over an hour. You don't ever shut up, Justin. God.
Never.
We do have some already. I'll say this now because I know there's a lag. If you send a super chat, I see it. I will read it. I promise. I know that they're in there. And if you didn't send a super chat but want to ask a question, just at Shannon Q so that I will see it. Please, it'll light up red. That way I know that it's a question for me and you guys aren't just arguing amongst yourselves when I go to look. All right, go.
Go. All right. Last thing I'll say before we get to Q&A is that I do think it's an extremely valid point that if you are part of a marginalized group, you do not have to be the person who advocates for yourself. Like, I don't think it's ever fair to say that as a trans person, it's you have to debate your own existence. Yes, okay, as a black person, like, no, it's up to you. You have to debate your own existence. The flip side of that is I don't buy for a second that if you're not black or not trans, you can't advocate for those groups. I also don't buy that at all. Like, we shouldn't put the onus on this shared goal of humanity. We shouldn't point it on these people. Everyone should advocate, not because that you have the right makeup or the right identity, but because these are good ideas. It's a good idea. It's right and just for trans people to exist in society. All of us should have that idea because it's a good idea. All of us should have the idea that racism is bad and black people are basically just as horrible as everyone else, or as good as everyone else, depending on your whether you're a pessimist or an optimist, and everyone should advocate for that specific idea. So I would never ask someone to debate their own existence. I do think that puts too much of an emotional toll on it, and it does, like what we were talking about earlier when we were talking about character. Well, of course you think racism is a problem. You're black. It's horrible. It's stupid.
Happens.
But it happens. But here's a cis white dude saying that black and trans people are just fine. So to a certain part of the audience is that, well, it must be true because this person has no vested self-interest in either of these identities, other than not wanting to see other human beings suffer.
Yeah.
But I guess that's not personal enough for.
Yeah.
Did that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense.
I feel like that could be taken.
And you don't have to watch them either.
Yeah.
You don't have to engage in them. You don't have to feel as though you need to support people. And I feel like I understand it especially when somebody you trust is engaging with somebody you know is attempting to harm you or construct society in a way that is going to be harmful to you. When you see that happens, when you see them, especially if you see them being friendly, like that goes to like the being nice thing. Like if you don't think about the communication strategy and you just see somebody that you trust, that you think is advocating for you, being nice to somebody that you know is attempting to construct a society or directly harm you, that's you seeing somebody that you see as an ally being friends with an enemy. And that can be hard to understand, to comprehend, to want to support. That has to be something that is considered, especially if you're cultivating an audience and you want them to trust you, which I think might be something that I articulated, that I feel that I don't want to do that to people.
The hardest balance, the hardest line I've found to walk, and I still don't have a good answer, is what is the line that I need to walk where I can be friendly with people who might be a little racist or might be a little transphobic or might be a little homophobic? What is the line I can walk with them where they can still I can still be endearing to them to the point where they might listen to me when I tell them that, well, dude, you're kind of wrong about this and maybe you should consider this way, versus
fuck you. Which is what people want to see, and
which is
what they deserve.
It's what they deserve in a lot of cases, but also what you said earlier, like if someone does see me being friends with one of those people, that can feel like a betrayal.
Yeah.
And not everyone's gonna have. You can't expect. Well, all right, you don't understand. Here's my 974 hours worth of content, including videos, tweets, and various essays I wrote when I was 7, proving that I'm in fact not a bad person. No, you can't expect everybody to know your full history. If they see something, a lot of people are just going to see the one tweet of yours, especially if it goes viral because you're in the process of getting canceled. It's something you do have to consider. And we can talk about it's unreasonable, but no, a lot of people are seeing you're so used to looking for threats because from a brain science perspective, negative threats are way more important than things that can help you. Because someone could help you by giving you food every single day, and that's awesome. But the second that person tries to kill you, that's the most important thing they've ever done by a long shot. Because if they kill you one time, you're dead forever. If they feed you one time, well, they have to keep doing it in order to maintain your graces, right? Yeah. So from that perspective, negative things like threats are way more important. So it sort of makes sense from a certain perspective to be on the lookout for those. Again, I don't have a great answer for that. I think that in general, as a general rule of thumb, with exceptions in every possible direction, I think that we should. I think our core principles, especially if you're vaguely on the left, and you know what, I'll even say this: I think you even believe this if you're on the right to a certain extent, that people are good and they deserve good things, and going from that, we want to build the amount of happiness and well-being in the world, and we won't do that by continually calling people just unworthy of change, incapable of change, and writing them off as wholly bad. Okay. So that's my little thing. I'm going to run to the bathroom real quick and grab one more cougar bait, and then I'll be right back for Q&A. Okay?
Yeah, sounds good. All right. So awesome. Guys who have sent questions while Justin is running off, I will read the first couple super chats because I actually don't think they're questions. So Neil says for Brant because he's cheap. I didn't know Brant. Oh, and then Brant, Vibrantly Brantley says, thanks for fixing the audio. Yeah, sorry about that. It sounds okay to me. It's a weird thing. So to me, when he was talking, I could hear him quite clearly, but it could be because I have the earbuds in, so I'm glad that it fixed. And Susan Gibard, I'm so sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. I'm really sorry, Susan, if I pronounced your name wrong, says, like this at Felix Rodriguez. I feel like that's about something that I didn't catch because I'm not watching the chat really very closely. And it looks like I got one from Lyman, but I can't see it because it's hidden from me because it's underneath the wire. So I'm going to scroll up and see if I can find it. Oh my goodness. the Creator Studio does this weird thing where it hides the bottom portion of super chats. So I'm sorry. Okay, I find explaining the differences between intrinsic, extrinsic, fundamentalist religiosity is the best way to ease tribalism between theists and anti-theists. Oh, I can start to answer that because I think that that is a really, really good point before Justin gets back. A lot of people, I think, have been so influenced by, oh, I hear a beer cracking. I'll reread the question since he's back. Maybe I'll get Justin's opinion first and see if it lines up with mine. Can you hear me?
Yes. Oh, and I didn't hear the question.
You didn't hear the question.
It means you could like get my opinion on it.
Yeah. So this is from Layman, who says,
"Oh, what's up, Layman?"
Yeah, I love him. He's great.
We had a good conversation like a week ago.
Yeah, he's really cool. So I find explaining the difference between intrinsic, extrinsic, fundamentalist religiosity is the best way to ease tribalism between theists / anti-theists. What do you think?
I'm gonna have to do a lot of guesswork to know, because I'm actually not super involved in discussions around religion and atheism and stuff like that. What I'm assuming
I am.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
What I'm assuming, you can tell me if I'm wrong. This is just what I'm guessing.
You're wrong.
Yeah. By the way, this is an important part of rhetoric, like using words that you want to make sure your audience understands. So I'm guessing intrinsic religiosity means it's like a core part of your being, you view yourself as like a servant of God. And extrinsic religiosity is referring to more like the accoutrements of religion, like you're going to church, the social benefits it gives you, and things like that. Is that somewhat close? I'm pretty sure he told me a week ago. I just
you
forgot.
don't listen. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
So to my mind, intrinsic would be holding a belief, and extrinsic would be the fashion in which you act out that belief, like the way you feel as though that belief needs to influence your behaviors and how you engage with the world and society. So
that all makes sense.
Yeah. So there's people who are Christians who hold a God belief, who will, have God hates fag signs and picket funerals, all the way to people who are Christians who are themselves trans and gay and are pastors in churches, that are very accepting of who they are, and the whole gamut in between. But when people look at the doctrines of religion and criticize the doctrine itself, they do it in a fashion that makes it seem as though everybody believes the same type of thing about this book, about this doctrine. Everybody interprets it the same way. Everybody has the same eschatology when it comes to enacting how they believe and what they believe. I think that might be the case. Maybe. Maybe. So I think that would be beneficial. And I see other questions, so I'm going to go ask them. All right, so asking again in case it got buried. It totally did, because I'm garbage at paying attention to the chat. So that's why you need to at me. Where are some good places for baby debaters to cut their teeth other than YouTube side chats? You might know better than me. That's a good question.
That's a really, really good question.
Because you should practice.
I got lucky and I did the debate bro thing. Like I started just arguing with people on Twitter, and eventually I would say that the best thing you can do is seek out someone who is known for doing at least live streams and who is known for bringing on people who they disagree with. And if you want to debate someone, find a topic that you're willing to debate on, find who's talking about it, and find someone who is willing to, who has a history of live streaming or who has a platform. Failing that, get in Discord servers that are away from your politics. Like, one of the best places to cut your teeth is go to a right-wing Discord server. Go to a right-wing, if you want to engage in voice debate, you got to find an avenue where voice debates are a thing, and you got to step up and say, hey, let me go to mid-sized right-wing YouTubers Discord channel and hop in the voice chat and see if I can cut my teeth on people who I know will disagree with me. That's not so much thrown to the wolves, because this is going to be probably a pretty private chat. So it's not going to be broadcasted. If you're really, if you're feeling a little bit better, see if you can find a small YouTuber trying to make a name for themselves, risk platforming them, risk making them you got to kind of say, I'm going to put forth the risk. This dude with 3,000 YouTube subs who's trying to do debates against lefties or SJWs or whatever. I'm going to give him what he wants, and I'm going to risk him doing a good job and getting bigger. I can tell you, though, that after 20-something debates, the vast majority of which I thought I did really well, I haven't grown very much. So I wouldn't be too scared about that risk if I were you, but seek out environments where people do have these discussions. Seek out environments where, and this is really important, you got to find people who disagree with you. Like, it doesn't have to be about politics. You can practice your rhetorical skills by if you exist in a few lefty Discord servers, argue about movies, argue about video games, argue about art, argue about something like that, and you can still test a lot of the rhetorical principles that are going to be useful in political debates. Write video essays. This is actually a really good thing. If you knowing how to construct an argument, like there are enough similarities to where if you can write a really good video essay, those are going to give you enough skills to where if you can also add in the skills of public speaking, it's a really complementary skill set. So there are a lot of ways to do it. There's no right way. I can tell you, I just did the annoying debate bro thing, and at least a couple of years ago, it was still new enough to where like a lot of the right wingers, like they wanted the content, and so they would accept a lot of left wingers to debate them. I think that's rapidly going downhill after we started winning.
Yeah. So now they have this narrative that nobody will debate them. They
used to,
crazy.
But now they're saying you shouldn't debate leftovers.
Yeah, because we're dishonest. We're dishonest.
Yeah, we're mean. we call everybody buddy and dog.
Vibrantly Brantley says, cut your teeth the old school way by making response videos to Venom Fang, like Venom Fang X used to. I'm not sure who Venom Fang X is.
I thought they were just like, if they were just making up a name, like say, cut your teeth the old way, like by making part 4 of a response video to Venom Fang 42069 XX.
And it's like, before I have something to say about that. Before I say that, I think that there's another thing that you could do, which is what I did, which was, it turns out literally anybody can make their own goddamn YouTube channel. You don't need anything. You just need a Gmail account, really, for the most part.
That's it.
You can just have a YouTube channel. So, if you're fighting with people on live chats and you think that it's an interesting thing to pursue, figure out how to do a live stream and make a YouTube channel and practice there so that you get like the real-time practice without, an audience, like a huge audience watching you. And that also gives you the opportunity to watch it back, which I think is beneficial because you can feel like you really did good in the moment and watch it back and go, oh shit, I missed this opportunity.
I have never, ever known how I did it in a debate during the debate. Ever.
You have to watch it back.
I have to watch it back because I'm never a good judge. Like, it just goes by so fast. Like, because you're in the moment, like you can't think about, well, maybe let me think about what I said 10 minutes ago. They're just like continually talking to you, saying something like screaming at you, like you haven't talked in 10 minutes.
And you're simultaneously absorbing and trying to develop counters. So you're not thinking a lot about the thing you just said. You're thinking a lot about how am I going to counter this in the thing that I say next.
Yeah, and there's also, and I learned this after the Milo debate. Like, so I got a lot of really good constructive criticism after the Milo debate. Like, in the moments, I thought I crushed him. I still maintain that I made him look stupid, but that's not entirely the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. If you're looking from like a big meta perspective, the biggest troll in the world, I made him cry. That's an okay perspective. But if you were there for the topic, I don't think I did a really good job representing the topic, because I don't think I was super clear because I was so focused on this gigantic right-wing troll that I'd prepared to be really, really mean towards. And so in the moment, I felt great, but then got some good feedback about it. Like, yeah, there are some things I could have done to construct my argument better, especially if I was trying to talk to someone who was against white fragility, the concepts, and maybe didn't have a clear idea of what it meant. So, it's important, and that's just how you grow. Like, it's important to like look back at the things you've already made, and what you say, like anybody can start a YouTube channel.
Yeah,
it's actually like you need what I would say you
can have 2 or 3.
Yeah, you can make 2 or 3. What I could say, like you need an okay microphone and some sort of video editing software. There's some free ones out there.
If you're doing live stream debates, you don't even need to do that.
Don't even need to do that. No, you can still engage in those debates. Modern day debates, the place where I debated Milo, they will take people who have no experience,
James,
no platform whatsoever. Yeah, they will take people with 70 followers who are willing to come on.
I would never go on there until you get some practice, though. I wouldn't I wouldn't.
It's not a great place to cut your teeth.
No, God,
it's
no.
It's a great place to
to test your chops once you cut your
teeth.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good I've been on Modern Day Debate. I haven't been on there in a long time. like a really long time. I think the last time I was on there was when I was talking to Darth Dawkins, and I think that probably did it for me. I was probably like, I don't know what to do. I was like, I'm done now.
And hey, it's
This is exhausting.
don't
and
feel
I did
like
well. That's good.
good?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I get good feedback from it. I was just he annoyed me, and I didn't want to do it.
Like, you
I
can
want to
find
talk
out
to
that
him.
debate's not for you, that is completely independent of whether or not you did good or not.
Yeah.
Like, my husband beats me in every single argument that we have. He's really good at debate. He hates it. He hates every second of it.
Yeah.
But he always beats me in every argument that we have. So, like, you could just not like it. And you know what? That's fine. You don't have to keep up with debates to be a good advocate. You don't have to, like, engage in debate to be a good advocate. There are plenty of avenues. Like, it is a specific avenue that requires a specific skill set that you might not you might be able to get better at it, but if you don't enjoy it, don't do it.
Yeah.
Like, find something that you enjoy. Find something you enjoy working on, because there are ways to do it. That I have no idea where I was going with that. Please save me.
Well, hi. Good job. Well, on that note, we've actually reached pretty much the end. We've been talking for almost an hour and a half, Justin. That flew by really quickly.
It was really fun.
It was really fun. I'm super psyched that I got to talk to you about it. And I really enjoyed your perspective on communication strategy. And yeah, so I think that's really effective. Oh, there's one more question. It's from Aaron Armstrong, and then we're gonna go. What does he think about the ContraPoints situation and canceling in that regard?
So I actually legit I wasn't joking. I did do a lot of research on something that you could construe as what we think of as cancel culture, and it was a lot of that research about so basically we judge people on two dimensions. Like, there's warmth, how likable and like us we think someone is, and competence, how capable they are about getting what they want. And of the two, warmth is more important in terms of whether or not we think someone is bad. And it was like that example earlier. Like, if someone does 1,000 good things but one bad thing, the bad thing's the most important thing because it presents the biggest potential to harm you, right? And so I do think that there was legitimate reason for people to be upset about what ContraPoints did, but that's different than agreeing with the legitimacy of the degree to which they went about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I said this yesterday, that there's legitimate criticisms that from honest people that really want you to just kind of be held accountable and understand their perspective and why something that you did hurt them or is harmful. But in amongst that, there's a narrative construction that starts to take place where it takes on a life of itself and it snowballs, and people start to imbue motives to the person that's, being canceled, the focus of the canceling. And that person starts to be othered in a really efficient manner by a group of people who have this shield in front of them that prevents them from criticism regarding what they're doing because they have a just cause. And the person that they're against is bad when it comes to the juxtaposition against that cause. I advocate for non-binary trans people. You did something that harmed non-binary trans people. That gives us the justification to essentially attack you in any way we feel fit within relative reason. Death threats are a bit too much, but imbuing you with motive and right, exactly. Like imbuing you with motive, saying people shouldn't support you, saying you should lose friends, saying you should lose a job. We can find justification for all of those things. And the shield that we have for our behavior is we have a good cause. So it allows for a lot of abusive behaviors, and the legitimate criticism gets lost in the mix. Because if your goal is to attempt to change the mind of the person, if your goal in this specific circumstance was to get ContraPoints to listen and understand, you're not going to do that by battering somebody into oblivion, putting them on the defensive, and threatening them.
So there's a lot of nuance to this conversation, as I'm sure that you established yesterday, right?
I solved canceling right now, so I don't know what you're talking about. It's done.
I think a good rule of thumb that you can use to understand what someone is trying to do, and kind of diagnose them, and also like see this in yourself. If you are calling someone bad, like this person is whatever synonym for bad person, and this could include things like this person is a racist, this person is a homophobe or something like that. We can use those as like bad signifiers.
Yeah.
If you're doing that, instead of saying what you did was this, like if you're diagnosing the person as this bad thing, the good bad binary, versus if you're diagnosing their action as the bad thing, because an action, we all do stupid things. I did 14 stupid things during this conversation and 117 in the hour before we started.
My list had you at 37, but that's okay. I'll be a principal of charity.
I was gonna say, like, you had to. Well, yeah, you. I forgot a lot.
I'll
of them
give it to you later.
So yeah, like we all do stupid things, like that, and that's just part of doing. Like, if you are an advocate, if like it's so in a lot of these circles, we're really concerned about like social justice. If you have never said something stupid in social justice circles and advocating for social justice, going back to like what we said earlier, I don't think you're very effective because you haven't taken enough risks. You haven't spoken to the bad people. You haven't spoken to, you're preaching to the choir. Yelling that transphobia is bad to a bunch of people who already fully endorse that transphobia is bad does nothing. It might make it doesn't do nothing. Like it's important to like feel good and make people feel safe and watch.
It creates a welcoming space, which is important.
You want to create a welcoming space, but the other side of that is like you want to change people's minds, and by definition you have to reach out to people who do not agree with you, who might even be opposed to you. And in doing that requires, to be effective at that requires empathizing with them. And over the course of that, you are going to say something that, especially when taken out of context, but maybe even within context, is going to make you seem like, you know, you're cozying up to terrible people for a bad reason and emboldening them to like get a bigger platform or do something.
Yeah, or you just want attention for yourself, and
which is also, sometimes that's true. Yeah, because you know it's hard to like, you can't be an effective advocate if no one hears you. So sometimes you do have to do things to give you a big, a larger platform. So I think it's really important to understand, like, if someone does something bad, criticize the action. That's perfectly acceptable. But come at it from a perspective is, I think we could fix canceling right now. A really good way to go about when someone does something wrong, appeal to their better nature. Appeal, say, all right, Natalie, I know you're better than this. I know you support like non-binary trans people. I know you do that. But, you know, platforming this person, like it kind of, this person says some really iffy things and it kind of sends a weird message. So I know you're better than this. Just think more about it in the future. Perfect. But saying like, you are a garbage person and I want to see your
you did this because
house.
You don't respect.
You did this because you hate me.
Yeah. And then that puts the person on the defensive, because instead of explaining why it happened and being able to process how what they did might have an effect, their character. Now they're defending their character instead of their actions. At that point, and so, you force them into that position where they have to say, I am not a bad person, instead of saying, oh, okay, I can see the point of what you're saying.
Oddly enough, this is something that White Fragility said that I actually really agree with. Like
you are canceled now. That's going to be the clip, right? That comes out of this. Justin says he agrees with White Fragility, everyone. He loved that book.
One of the things
he
it did
say
great.
Is
that like when we call someone racist and like it's saying like you're a bad person, it's attacking your character instead of your actions. Like if someone does something, like if
so you stole this idea from Milo Yiannopoulos. That's what I'm getting from this.
That's what you. Yeah, that's it.
Right. that's the important takeaway from this entire stream. Actually, yeah, you steal all your ideas.
Yeah, this was your entire strategy from the beginning. You're leading me to that one clip, and now this clip's gonna be circulated.
Yes, I win. I won this conversation, Justin.
You won the conversation. Judges, send in the scores. Objectively,
scores in the description down below.
The numbers, scores in the description.
Scores in the comment section. Yeah.
All right, you have to cut off when you upload this. You have to edit that out because that's gonna be like my new catchphrase. Scores in the description. Oh my god, I can't believe that's not a catchphrase yet. It's awesome.
I'm not editing it out, and if you ever do it, so help me God, I'm canceling.
Well, no worries.
All right, we're at time. Awesome. We're at time. I've had enough of you. So
Which is fair.
Tell everybody who tuned in late who you are and where they can find you. And also your links are in the description, and that's where I will be placing our scores after everybody.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is actually Justin. I have a YouTube channel called it's called Jangles Science Lad. You can follow me on Twitter at SJW Debates, and I make lots of stuff very, very sporadically and unreliably. And I've been told I have a nice beard. So those are all the important things.
People who are fans of this channel are very used to content being sporadic and unreliable.
I'm trying to yes, exactly, the best audience.
That's essentially my brand. That and sound issues. That's all I have to offer.
I think that's why we got along so well, is because those are my two things. Also, sporadic content, sound issues all the time.
Yeah.
So perfect.
Match made in heaven. All right, I'm putting up.
If you like Shannon, you'll like me. I have all the same problems.
Thank you for being here. I've put up the end screen. Now no one can see us, but they can still hear us, so don't say anything crazy. And as I always say at the end, everybody, thank you for watching. And as always, help elevate the discourse. And then I wave and they can't see me. Bye.